Hi, everyone. So this is our second episode of Getting Everyone Moving, the Palms to Pines Parasports show where we interview really interesting people. So today we have my friend Wes Hall. Hey, Wes.
How you doing, big guy?
All right. So Wes, tell us a little bit about your life. You have a prosthesis and how that came about and yeah, what you're doing now.
So I was um 14, yeah, 14, and I was playing soccer and got injured. And you get injured a lot, so I didn't really think about that much. The injury kind of went away, and then it kind of came back. And then coming back with a osteosarcoma, a bone cancer, in my mid lower femur, my right leg. At that point in time, there a limit salvage option of trying to salvage the leg and put a steel rod in so the leg would be stiff versus a amputation. And my cancer at the time did not respond to chemotherapy, so the tumor grew and actually lifted my leg on couch one day, and the leg broke in half right at the tumor. Um, at that point, we knew it would be amputation, and then per just the consulting doctors, I went and requested to have a full hip, not full hip, a hip disarticulation. So essentially, just removal of the femur bone out of the pelvis, and then so there would not have been enough residual femur to really be functional, and then just more of a in a way kind of situation. So we did that, and then I was active before, skateboarder, I used to BMX bike and surf and stuff like that, and so my about 9 months afterward, my mom sent me to an outdoor venture camp in the North Carolina mountains, where go to wear a prosthetic and everything. I mean, a teenager, you're kind of self-conscious and want to wear a leg as much as you can. And the hike up to the main lodge was cool. The hike down was a different story. And so that prosthetic, I was falling about 3, 4 times going downhill. And so the prosthetic came off and sat at base camp for the remainder of the week. So a 13-mile hike in Pisgah Forest was all on crutches and traversing rivers and ravines. Probably a better judgment on that fact. I don't think it'd have been functional with prosthetic. Those prosthetics at the time were not water friendly kind of prosthetic that rusted up on me before I got done with the hikes. But and then from there, it became more of I had a good group of friends, and then some relationship with local surf shop, and so just and then a local doctor as well, to kind of see what I could do. So from knee boarding, kind of precursor to waveboarding, um, and then back surfing again, bodyboarding, and then got back into swimming again, and so led to that, and then after that, just college, and then college start testing the body to more crazy stuff. Started snow ski racing in college, and that led to like a little bit of just medium level, low level mountain climbing type stuff. And then kept paddling. So surprised sometime later in my career in the Y, I got interested in kayaking, kind of in the late '90s. And a friend I was made did some kayaking trip, and we decided we want to get into it, and then it kind of bloomed from there. So as far as my kayak is definitely my specialty. I would probably say cycling now is probably my second specialty right now. So
And you're a program manager for Bridge to Sports. So who are the types of people, that you're working with and what kinds of activities are they participating in?
So we are now of our current athlete population. We have cerebral palsy, stroke survivor, spina bifida, and the wide variety of spina bifida. We also have some athletes with ataxia, um, some spinal fusions from broken backs where they had their spine fused, and then some amputations as well. And that, and then I forgot we have a lot of our cyclists have visual impairment in our athletes. So that is the core of what we do. We have some limb deficiency, whether it's a femur or tibia growth deficiency. So the leg lengths are different on how one leg grows versus the other. Um, and a lot of our athletes, rarely do they, unless there's like an amputee, that have one physical disability that may be affecting them. The spinal cord, or the spinal bifida could be the spinal bifida that damage had during birth, and then tack on spinal cord tethering and all that kind of stuff that leads to things later down the road that affect them. But that right now we're probably a consistent group of about 50 to 60 athletes who on a consistent basis come to our programs throughout the entire year, ranging from cycling, archery, air rifle, wheelchair basketball, bocce, and then we also have the adaptive paddling, and then we also have cycling as well. We had to run golf. Golf was a huge success this summer. It sold out, so it was hard to get new people in unless someone canceled. So
And how do you motivate, people who of different abilities that, might not want to try to play? I mean, how do you get people involved, especially youth?
yeah, we've started moving to more of a model of a I guess a private consultation or first visit, and the first visit is with us, and then like it'd be Daisy, my program cultivator, and I, and King, my program assistant. You kind of give them more of a private setting, let them try things out, let them ask questions without feeling the intimidation. They may be asking, quote, a stupid question, or there's no stupid question. It's all about exploration of what you want to do. So we found that be very successful. It also helps us, if they want to try cycling, they can try cycling in a very closed environment on the property within a parking lot, very low learning skill level, get into it. And there's also just a lot of talking too. Man, there was the same thing that came with COVID was that some of our programs facilities became non-existent, so we had no access to facilities whatsoever. And so for some of these athletes to still maintain a level of activity, had to go outside of their realm. And so a lot of them, like the bocce players and some of our wheelchair basketball players, those weren't available anymore on a regular basis. And so they pushed over to archery and air rifle and cycling, and which changed a whole new world for them. In fact, I had a 13-year-old athlete start cycling this year, and that was his parents are getting him a hand cycle for his own, and then another one she's grown up, and so now she's into the adult version of her bike. We have a cerebral palsy athlete who was not ridden for a while because of the balance issues, but we got her on a trike at the property, and usually they ride a couple laps. I think she rode like 45 minutes, and then she got off, and that led to her coming riding on the trail with us, and then led to her going to a off-road, adapted off-road clinic up in Western North Carolina to go right out there. And so now she's exploring what kind of bike to get and settle on what she's going to eventually convince her husband to let her buy. So, but yeah, it's just really helping them find that there are possibilities and let them it's okay. There will be some failure, and that's a failure is okay. It's just as long as we learn from it. We may find that one way, like that one particular athlete with the CP, we had her bike originally set up was not the most efficient way for her to pedal. So we changed pedal around a little bit, and then it became more efficient. I also have a devil amp that started riding me this summer. Was using the strap-in um, pedals, and then realized I think I was going to do clip-ons, and the clip-ons ended up being a world of difference to him on pedaling around. But just a lot of conversations. Even I talked to a wife yesterday who her husband, now a below knee amputee, and went inactive for about a year, and just kind of explained it was like you just got to get him to the program. Once he gets to the program and he sees other athletes and interacts with other athletes and realize that life has not really changed, it's just different on how you approach things. That he was an avid golfer before, and when she said he was a below knee amputee, I'm like, he's gonna have no problem getting back in golf again. In fact, he may even get where he's gonna get free access to pros who will change his way he swings and stuff. So when he goes back to play to friends again, he may probably start playing them because I'll have professional guidance on how to play better. So it's just a lot of personal conversations, and then getting them introduced to the main group, and it's also important to create a culture of inclusiveness in the group as well. That if a new athlete comes in, everybody's saying hi and saying hello, and so it's not me showing up to a group of archers and not one of them saying hi to me. I'm not going to come back to that program again. So also the responsibility of staff, just kind of, and the volunteers. Hey, have you met Mike? Hey, Mike, this is Jerome, and Jerome, this is Scott. Just kind of get everybody kind of know each other and create a supportive vibe in a particular activity.
You you coach your kids in swimming and such. Is there any difference between coaching kids with able-bodied versus kids who are have some kind of physical disability?
I would say no. The the mentality is the key difference is getting them started. And that could even with my kids, to me, they're able-bodied kids, and getting them like, okay, we need to find activity to do, and we're going to do this and move forward on that. Um, but that's probably one comparison there, but then similarity. But the next one would be it just getting to realize that they can do something. And if they're new to disability, it's realizing they may not be able to do it the way they did before, which is fine. But let's find a way to find a success the way your situation is now. If they're born with a disability, they've been hopefully been fostered to cultivated to continue to explore what they can do, and this is just something else for them to try to do. But once they get involved in actual programming, my coaching with we have a particular athlete from UNC. When I ride her, my coaching on her how to do her intervals and get better at cycling and increase her conditioning is no different than the way I would coach someone who's able-bodied. Um, Techniques will change. I mean, so coaching, talking to my daughter how to shoot archery is a little different than coaching one of my athletes who has cerebral palsy and may have a little ataxia on one side, how to adjust the bow and compensate for their deficiency due to their physical disability. But for the most part, it's pretty much the same. The mental game is always going to be there. It just everybody's mental game is different. And I've had the able-bodied athletes have had a worse mental game to get past than the athletes who have disability. So I think kind of trying to pigeonhole that, oh, they get disability, they'll be hard to coach. Um, you just really haven't grasped the concept of coaching, that you don't understand it. Coaching is the disability part is the way to adapt for them to participate in sports. The mental game is a second part, and it doesn't matter if disability or not. I've had kids, they're complete able kids, be very difficult to coach and get them to grasp or want to do more. Where I've also had kids with a disability who are eager to do as much as they possibly can and succeed as great as they possibly can as well. So.
Can you talk a little bit about your working with people with visual impairment, both kayaking, which I know you've taken some classes in, but also in riding tandem?
Yeah, so the one population this summer we actually had to do a little bit of change in our COVID protocol as far as 6 foot distancing, because of the tandem riders, you're basically on the back of your paddle in front of you. And with them, they were pretty much, when I put it out there, I think about an hour and a half, they're like, let's do it. Like they're ready to get out and get active, because that community effort involvement to get them active, especially in riding, cycling, or in paddling, is key. And it creates a lot of inherently social interaction with the athletes and the pilots, and sort of shed it from there. And I would say when we did the adaptive, so I was working with the American News Association to develop their advanced communications endorsement, which is for visual impairment and hearing impairment and speech impairment with a perceptual deficit. And so we had our day that we were quote deaf, so the instructors could not say anything at all. They do everything by visual cues. And then we had a day where we were visually impaired, and we were 100% visually impaired. So that's only about 13% of the population who's absolute visual impairment. And so we all had blindfolds on, and so it was one of those things where as an instructor, we try to guide people. Then also we got guided. So we got to see both sides of the situation of what it felt like to have no visual reference and understand that perception, and so that you could better guide your athletes while they're on the water. And I say it was weird. I mean, it was a humbling experience, because I went from a very smooth paddling techniques and strokes to kind of the kid who just has his training wheel taken off his bike, pound through his estuary with a friend of mine, Marcel, guided me through the estuary, and that was a good experience for me because it also helped me look as far as how to simplify some of my how I did things and be very descriptive in my instructions. So with able-bodied and with people with visual impairment, your actions are very key on how you perform something. They're gonna watch everything you do and they will mimic everything you do. Where our athletes with visual impairment, I need to be very descriptive of what I want them to do. And so we had a student from the state that taught her how to paddle. It was a learning curve for both of us. She was learning how to paddle in water and get used to it, but then just learning keeping it basic, learning to basic left right skill, control the boat left and right. And then when she got comfortable with that, she actually got to the point where she was paddling beside me. And as we talked, if I got too quiet, she knew she was getting too far away from me. She'd steer a boat toward me. If I got too loud, she'd steer a boat away from me. And so this kind of thing there would help them find their independence as well. And I think it's key. I think you hear things like, oh, we can go hike and they can hold a string and a rope and be led through the forest. They don't want to be led through the forest like a dog. They want to be part of the experience. And so our athletes on hiking, they'll put their hands on their shoulder. If I'm on the water paddling with them, I'm giving them directions. I'm out in the boat with them. They need to feel the independence. And even with the cycling, they're responsible for the power. I mean, the power is basically describing what they're coming up to, or come to a stop, or come to a bump, or going to a turn. But the effort to get from point A to point B is primarily from the athlete with visual impairment. And so it's an interesting world to be in. And developing, like in any situation, is really get developing rapport with those athletes as well, because they can be some of my best advocates. I know when we had to look at some locations for cycling this summer, I have a couple of athletes I can contact and say, I'll get them the address and say, can we get here with public transportation? And if they say, no, we can't get there, they say, yes, we can get there. And so I utilize them a lot to make sure that I'm not selecting situations that maybe not conducive for them. They're part of their decision process as far as if I'm choosing a new site, athlete A, B, and C are going to input on that site. And then when we get to that site, they're going to input after the fact of that site. Like, this site was not great. The restroom facilities were not great. There were too many obstacles to get around. That kind of input as well. Now, also, I think as someone running a program, athlete input, regardless of their impairment, is key. So and if that new site went to the summer, if our athlete's visual impairment had said, this is a terrible site, I would not be going back to that site again. Fortunately, they loved it. It was great. It was clean. It was a great ride. It was close to the river trail. And so it was a good challenge to ride for them. But with them, I really rely on their opinions and stuff. And they'll call me out on stuff. I mean, I think with one athlete one day, she was asked if she needed her bag. I was leading her to the bus. And I said, the yellow bag. And she was like, I wouldn't know, Wes. I wouldn't know what color bag it is. So it's nice to have that kind of rapport with your athletes when now she knows it's a yellow bag. And I was like, so yeah, Donna, it's a yellow bag, by the way. So if anybody is like me and kind of clueless, you can say, just go grab the yellow bag and they'll find it. So yeah, it's having that kind of humor as well is important with your athletes. You got to laugh at some of the stuff you do because you always have some slip ups. And
So you do. You're involved with a school program, and I mean, what's the importance of that, and what do you do?
so let me share my phone. So the school initiative program. So with that one, we did is we essentially took over a physical education class for an entire day. So we gave the well-deserved break for the PE teachers. And then we did the 4 schools last year, with the 2 elementary schools and 2 middle schools. The middle school, about 55 kids for about a 55-minute section of time. So we went in prepared to do bocce, wheelchair basketball, and Sydney volleyball, but we ended up doing Sydney volleyball and wheelchair basketball. It allowed us to do a little better transition, but most importantly, it allowed them to have more time in the chair and more time on the floor playing Sydney volleyball to really experience that situation. And so I think every kid probably averaged maybe about 10 minutes to about 20 minutes in the chair, and then about 10, 15 minutes on the floor playing with Sydney volleyball. And believe it or not, after this, we did a survey. They did not like sitting volleyball because it was too hard. And I'm like, well, welcome to the world of disability with the disability. And then even with the chairs, and they push around the chair, we did some conditioning drills with them. So they just get used to feel how to maneuver a chair. And this was tiring. I'm like, yeah, and imagine that you guys get to hop out of the chairs and walk back to class. And so, whereas Coach Akeem here, his whole day is playing around his use of the wheelchair. And so it's kind of an interesting experience. We actually had some students that had physical disabilities in some of the programs. So it was kind of nice to maybe something that was focused on them versus them having to adapt their ability to the program being offered PE class. It was flipped. The students, the able-bodied students, had to adapt themselves to being in a program with them. And so I think that's a nice kind of switch up as well. And it kind of played into the Disability Awareness Month in the schools in this area. I think usually in October, November. And then our elementary school kids, similar thing as well. And this portion of the class is a little smaller, so they got a little more time in the chair, a little more maneuvering around. But in addition to that, we also did some disability etiquette as well. So we kind of explained some things to because most kids in school, they're talking about your personal bubble and not touching people's stuff without permission. But when it comes to like mobility devices like crutches or prosthetics or wheelchairs, they're cool things. And so it kind of like don't touch that red button kind of situation. So getting the kids to understand like Akeem's chair is Akeem's chair. This is his extended bubble space. And that if you see Akeem pushing up a hill, I know you want to help him give up the hill, but you have to ask him if he wants to help up the hill. And he may not want it, and he may be okay with that. And so, and then a lot of it's just kind of, especially with the elementary, well, both middle school and the elementary school kids, is we give them a time to have some question and answers, ask us about our disability. So we answered some questions several times, and we asked them some pretty deep questions as well. I mean, just kind of like just social questions of how we handle life and did we ever get down with the disability and how do we handle that and how we do that. And so just, it was great to hear them we kind of broke down the barriers. Like now you may have seen someone like us in public. Now you have the chance to ask that question you want to ask away. And so, and it came out prepared for that. And we're more than willing to answer those questions anyways. I think that really helped out the program as well. And so I think with all four of them, the teachers would have had us all 4 days of the week, if all possible. So that was part of the plan this year to do at least a 3 or 4 day program each one of the schools, so they get the entire student population be exposed to it versus just 1/4 of the population during the day. But yeah, it was a cool experience, and the teachers definitely appreciate it. It's something they don't have access to chairs. I mean, chairs are what $2,000, $2,200 a chair. City volleyball is not that difficult to get a hold of, but I think also having someone come in with a disability teaching the course changes the scenery up a little bit. It's not them just, I got a PE teacher teaching their boring thing for me again. It's like they're quite respectful to us that day. So, which I was quite impressed. I have a feeling sometimes that the PE teachers may have a little bit of resistance throughout the semester. So, overall a great experience. I definitely encourage anybody to do that. And also for I see that PE teacher who saw me that year, I may miss a kid who comes into the program, into their school, had disability. And that teacher will say, hey, you need to go check out Bridge of Sports. It's a great organization for you as well. There's also great awareness, and also help kind of spreads out the referral campaign as well. Because they feel confident what I'm doing and they've seen what we've done. They're more likely to refer a student to us, but they've never seen us in action. That referral will be more kind of, say, cold referral, like, yeah, go to Bridge of Sports, and their head to going, it may be okay, it may not be okay. But at least when they see us in action, they're going, you need to go to Bridge of Sports, you're gonna have a great experience. And so we've had 2 athletes from Southern White County referred to us that way because the teacher had a great experience with the program and said, your child needs to go to Bridge of Sports and participate in the sports program. That word of mouth is a very powerful tool for recruitment.
What do you think your kids see when they look at you, and how do you think they describe you to their friends?
Oh, that's interesting. I mean, I could tell you what my able-bodied friends, they just forget I have a disability. And so there's some times when I was full-time at the Y back in the day, like a 15-foot ladder to hang things up on the ceiling for some celebration we're doing. At that point in time, I was not wearing a prosthetic that day because I was guarding. And so somebody get put up hung up the ceiling. So I just grabbed the ladder and worked my way at the top of the ladder and hung the thing up, came back down. And they're like, we probably shouldn't have had you go up there, but just didn't think we didn't think you couldn't do it. And so I think with athletes, it's important to show that confidence, but also they see me make mistakes and they make fun of my mistakes. And in wheelchair basketball, when one of them schools me in a maneuver and blocks me out, I will definitely congratulate them on that. I was like, you just schooled Coach West. I mean, so giving that confidence of like, because the humbling confidence that means even your coach will make mistakes and it's okay. I will definitely guard you differently next time. But I think it's just they got to feel comfortable saying what they need to say to you, and whether it's confidential or not confidential, but you're helping them to find their world, their path into society, whether it's a new disability or old disability. But most of it's just kind of realizing that there's potential and that you have the right to exist in this world. And so, and then we all exist differently. And so those adaptations, because even with, they see what I do, I try not to do too stupid stuff around my kids. I don't climb up the shelves in the warehouse without a ladder. I will do that without a ladder where the kids are not there. When the kids are there, it's safety first. So things like that. But I think for the most part, I hope they just enjoy seeing my smiling face and me very loudly calling my name up and then they come into the warehouse. And also, I think I also realized, even throughout my years with coaching swim team, the key important as well, the kids, is you've got to have the parents buy-in as well. So I'm also talking to parents and listening to them too, which I think is a key component to any program. I hear someone who says, yeah, they don't get parents too involved because they take too much control. I'm like, then you weren't running your program correctly. You did not create the culture to want the program to succeed. I have run a swim team by myself with 75 kids. And it was not for my relationship with those parents. I know if I gotten half the stuff I need to get done during the summertime. And so I think it's just key that that culture of inclusivity, which is definitely, I hope, with our kids, create that confidence. And I hope that's what I do with them, is confidence. To kind of walk in, I guess, wear your disability as a badge of honor, to say, I am amputee, and this is what I am. And this is what you get. Let's play the game and move forward.
We're going to end it there, Wes. That was really, really good interview. I mean, I always remember Wes as someone who cleaned my clock when we were playing wheelchair ultimate frisbee. He just kicked my butt.
I did school you pretty bad that day.
And just smiled when he scored goals, and I'd be like, ah! Oh well. Yeah. All right, Wes. Thanks very much, and have a wonderful holidays.
Same to you, big guy.
Thank you.